Morning. It's now February, only about 6 weeks to go until the NEC restoration show, so I really need to pick up the pace. The plan for today is weld that in. That will get that front corner sort of done. I'll have a think about this bit, but really what I need to do is come back up to the windscreen surround and finish off this side. That way I can think about doing the final prep to the engine bay, getting that painted, then the windscreen can go in, and then that means in the evenings I can concentrate on doing the mechanical stuff in and around the engine bay, like cooling system and all of that stuff, water pump, radiator, lights. Then after that is done, I'll move on to that floor pan and the heel board, so that then when that's done I can get the fuel tank back in and we should be making progress. Still, there is a hell of a lot of work to do. I think I might have been a bit over ambitious. Still got the whole sill to do this side, and I haven't even explored that boot floor area, which I know is bad. So yeah, I've got to pick up the pace and maybe not be as OTT with some of this as I have been. First thing I need to do is work out the finished height of this panel, because it could be, I think it's level with the bottom of these flutings, but what I'm going to do is check with the other side and then make some reference measurements and basically draw a line along here as to the height this needs to be. Then I can take this panel back inside, drill all the plug weld holes in that flange, and then all along here where it butts down onto the chassis rails. Then I can do the final prep zinc priming and start welding it in. That's my panel marked up. I was able to do quite a lot on the bottom as well, so I know where those flanges go. So now I need to drill a lot of holes. A very long time later, we have holes. Time to go put it back in the car and see if they actually line up with anything. Okay, so there we have one very crudely shaped floor repair panel. Some of you will have recognised that a lot of these parts have inspection holes or ventilation holes in them, and this would have had a big hole here for what I've now recently been told is actually to help paint drain out of the shells when they were dipped in corrosion preventative stuff. Looks a bit like that. So for speed, I'm just going to put that panel in without drilling them. I can always come back and drill them afterwards. I've already worked out I've got enough holes here and at the front to actually inject my cavity wax, dinitrile, stuff like that. So not bothered in that regard. It's just for originality. It'd be nice to keep and copy them all. So next step is to put some zinc primer on it and then weld it in. I've tacked this rear end in, and then I've bent the belly of the floor down and tacked it there, so I know I've got my curve right with the heights I've marked on this side. And then what I've done is just a sense check, because a couple of videos ago I was talking about how annoying it is when people weld sills on and they wobble all over the place. Yeah, there's a wobble in that lower flange, but if you actually look to the rear of the sill, which is original, it's all nice and straight. So I'm happy that floor is the right sort of shape it needs to be. Now I need to just push it down and tack it in and then weld it in. Well, I'm probably about maybe a quarter of the way through the welding. Just been concentrating mainly on the top. That's all going pretty well. One thing I've got to be conscious of on this car more than most SD1s is that on that side of the transmission tunnel there's an additional sound insulation panel, which is basically bituminous type fibrous board moulded to shape. There is a bit of an air gap between this and that, but I don't want to put too much heat in here in case I set fire to the whole of the underside of the car. It would not be good because it would be incredibly difficult to put out. I have tacked it in key areas, but one thing I didn't do, which I should have done and I completely forgot about, is clean the paint off the inside face of that inner sill, because trying to weld those like flanges under here is a bit of a ball ache. It looks untidy, but don't forget that bit over there is just going to be hanging in free space for the moment until I do the rear section. But I need to maybe jack the side of this car up and like scribe through those holes to good metal, like clean shiny metal, and then I can plug weld. Access under here isn't great either when you're wearing a welding helmet. I'm never sure how much of this to film, how much of it is of interest to people, and really why people watch the videos. But anyway, I haven't really done any showing you how I'm welding this, because I don't really think anyone would care. But the general process has been, whilst making sure it doesn't move out of alignment to this side, I've just been beating the floor down to make sure that it actually contacts the sill, all of the underlying structure, and then working my way forwards, taking care not to set fire to the car, and then I'm just going to smooth that out onto that floor panel. I'm not feeling particularly good today, so I'm not sure how much more I'm going to do. It's a shame because the weather's so good, but I also don't want to stay ill for very long, so I'm going to carry on for a bit and see how it goes. I thought I would actually try and do a bit of a video of the general welding process. I've got the MIG welder turned up high because where this sits on that chassis rail is about 2mm thick, whereas this stuff on the top's 0.8 or 0.9. So if I had it on low, I'd be filling in that hole without actually penetrating onto that chassis rail underneath, and you'd probably be driving along and just hear ping ping ping, and all of these would just pop off. So because I've got the welder turned up high, it's crucial that that is really hit down hard. You can hear that, that's really hard onto there, because otherwise with the increased heat, if that bit isn't touching that bit, it'll just burn back and you'll still get no penetration into that until you made a big hole. Incidentally, these holes are about 6.5 or 7mm. Some people like use little 5mm holes, but I find that when you're doing big bits of metal, or like going down onto a big bit of metal with a thin bit, the weld gets filled in so quick that there's not enough time for that bit underneath to get really hot and for the weld pool to all sort of flow together. So I'm going to weld that one, I'm going to hit that down, get it on there first. The reason I have never tacked this front edge is because this whole panel has a belly in it. So if I tacked that, beating these ones down, I would be putting little dishes in rather than having a nice smooth curve all the way along. I hope that makes sense. I think it does. So what happened there was I aimed it up there, I made sure I got lots of heat in, but then I could see it like burning away this side, so I had to break the weld just to let it cool down momentarily, and then I went back and filled that in. So I'll do that one over there. I haven't actually cleaned the metal underneath particularly well. You can still see the pen mark for when I was marking stuff out. If it's really springy metal, sometimes I hold it down with a chisel or a screwdriver or something, just to like make sure that it doesn't just bounce up. Obviously that can affect your aim, which is what happened there. But now those panels are nicely joined. And then I can start coming back along here. I'm going to tack it there and there because I know I've got that chassis rail continuing, and I can beat that down so it's nice and solid. And then I'll just continue working along away from the solid bit, making sure that the two panels stick together. Still got the welder turned up high, which is good for doing this sort of stuff because it burns away any shitty bits of paint I forgot to sand off. You can hear it spitting and farting. That's because on the underside of the car we've still got lots of understeel. and stone chip. So it's actually burning on the underside, and the gases come through, and they're fighting with the shielding gas that I've got with my welder, and that creates all that crap on top. Get rid of that. You can hear that's really solid. I would ordinarily have my head very much closer up there, but I can't get in there at the moment because I've got the camera stand in the way. So I think I've missed a couple of bits. So while it's still warm, I've got to fill them in. If I'd gone and back and filled them in when all of that panel had cooled down, they would have just sat on the top like little pert bumps. It wouldn't have flowed in. So then when I would have come back and sanded it to dress it, I'd have opened up a big cavity or a pinhole or something. So that's the process. Long, laborious, repetitive, pretty boring, but kind of just the way it is with stuff like this. So I've now completed that side and come into here. The levels of the floor in there are determined by those chassis rails and that reinforcer, but in that corner it's determined by where it's going to meet the old floor. So I don't want to just assume it's in the right place. I've got to come down here and make sure it's in the right place before I weld it in. And again, you can see the welds have penetrated nicely, got good heat into that 2mm steel. This bit up here I can hammer closed when the floor's welded down onto it. Same with that bit of the inner sill. My man flu is definitely winning, so I think I'm just going to do that bit and then go home. Right, it was welding horribly from above, so I've had to come down here with the wire brush on the drill, just get all that shitty underseal off, just to stop it from burning and like flowing through and ruining my welds. But it's quite nice to have solid metal, no big rusty holes, and a real sense of achievement with that repair. So a tiny bit of surface rust in there and there, but that can all just be ground down and treated. I can hammer this closed and weld down there, and then I've got the floor, the inner sill all done. Then I need to put the inner wheel arch in as my next step, before then doing the rear end. Just sanded the worst of the welds back and dusted a bit of acid etch primer on it. I haven't gone silly, it's just to stop some of the flash rusting. So that's all good. I will come back before I seam seal it and dress those welds a bit nicer, but it's just to get the worst of it off. This bit here at the rear I haven't done. That'll all get tucked in neatly when I start fixing this bit. Yes, this car has a big hole over here. This one's probably more complicated because it has the mounts for the fuel tank and other shizzle going on. So yeah, leave that for another time. I was planning on opening that up so I could go home, just think about it, but I'm knackered. And yeah, gonna go home, watch TV, drink hot drinks.